Hi, this is Michael Steinbacher with EU Geology Earth News. Today we're going to look at canyons that I think were created by electricity, ripped out electrically, not through water or wind erosion. So let's start by looking at an area that's not part of this process. Here's Flagstaff up here. Here's Meteor Crater, and this is the Mogollon Rim. This is the rim. These are areas that I believe are fluvial. These canyons get smaller as they go uphill, and they get to a point where there's no water available and they stop. One canyon bumps into another at the high point, always at the high point, and then you start to get erosion coming down with more and more water available. So it really seems to be fluvial. And the ironic thing is, it looks like a thunderbolt. It looks dendritic, or it looks like a tree. So this is an example of fluvial erosion. These cliffs right here, I believe, are part of an electrical process, but that's a different story. Now we're going to go over to Zion Canyon to see the really high intensity electrical removal process. This is Zion Canyon. There's the Virgin River running through here. Let's see. Runs up, comes up this way. There's another branch of it that comes up this way. But the canyons I'm referring to are not where the river is, not the dendritic fluvial pattern, but these straight lines that just go right through high points. They just keep going. They don't slow down when they get to the top, and they don't get more narrow as they go higher and higher, and there's less and less water available. You can see that they're quite parallel, which doesn't make a lot of sense. They just go so nice and straight, and they make really hard edges that are almost like a knife edge, and they're 3,000 feet deep. This is what the canyons look like. The sides of the canyons are quite straight, as if something cut them, and I don't think water would do this. There's an interesting little sidebar up here. This is shale, or as the rangers at the welcome station say, it's mud. It's underwater deposition at the very tops of the formations. This is another image that shows how crisp the walls of the canyons are. This is one of the straight canyons, not one of the fluvial canyons. So it shows that it almost looks like a knife came in and excavated this canyon. This flat material over here is the shale, or the mud, that was laid down underwater. And what's interesting is that on the tops of the formations on either side of the 3,000-foot canyons, there's shale at the top. The only way I can think for this shale to be up here is if this entire area was coated like this all the way across. So there were no canyons. Maybe where the river was, it might have prevented or washed out the mud that had come in earlier. But all of this would have been flat like this prior to these electrical canyons being excavated. That's kind of a big deal. That's a lot of missing material that was probably turned to dust by an electrical process. So you can just zoom in and see all of these parallel canyons that don't get smaller when they go up. So these leave a signature. You can see this electrical process and how it's removed material. This is an area off to the side of one of the straight canyons as you're getting ready to leave the park. This, to me, is what the process looked like, as if it was being scratched into oblivion, and this is where the process stopped. But these scratches are not all in the same direction. Many of them are in very different directions. Some swing down here, others swing across. These are sort of horizontal. These go down, these go up. They're in all different directions. So it seems as if something is sweeping across. It's electrical, eating the sides of the canyons. This is a road cut as you're traveling towards the east, exiting the park. This is removed material for the road. I believe this is material that was pre-existing. You can see the same lines on here that you saw on the last image. And up here, two black blobs that seem out of place compared to everything else. This is zoomed in. What I imagine happened here is that this got so hot it became molten. The same with this, while the other area surrounding it stayed non-molten, so that dust could be created, similar to an electric discharge machining process. But when the material melts, you don't get dust anymore. You just get hotter and hotter because it's a liquid. And surrounding it the area surrounding it keeps getting eroded, eating away the mountain. So this would have been turned to dust while this was a liquid. This is just speculation on my part. Again, I'd like some plasma physicists or electrical engineers or even an astronomer to sit around and talk about this and how this might have happened. But it's a different way of looking at this area. Electrical removal of dry, non-liquid areas, while places that become molten are protected, even though they're kind of burnt. So here we have Zion Park. Here is St. George down here. This is in Utah. And over here we have Snow Canyon, which is really kind of interesting place. Sort of a baby Zion. But what's interesting is this one right here, this canyon that comes so nice and straight, it kind of splits off, two straight canyons going in. Kind of hard to photograph, I've tried. Up here at the north end of the canyon, this little thing right here is a drainage, and it's going north, away from the canyon. All of this drains away. None of these drain in to the south to explain this erosion. There is no water available except a little bit that would be rained right here, which is certainly not going to erode this canyon. This erosion, this drainage going to the north, really makes this seem electrical. It's such a big deal, this little tiny drainage. And then these angles being so similar off of the main canyon, I think are a marker. This one actually goes right through this high point. It's amazing how it does that. It shouldn't. It should go up and get smaller and stop, but it goes right through. Same with the others. So I think it would be great if somebody could write an algorithm to look at maps, use Google Terrain, and look for these angles around the world. I think it would help find electrical excavation as opposed to dendritic formations, which I believe are a marker for fluvial excavation. So Dr. Paul Anderson did work on the angles of drainages coming into rivers. I think it would be interesting to look at these angles and then try to find electrical canyons. In many instances, drainage canyons are struck by these electrical events, so it'll make them bigger, it'll alter them, but they were fluvial to start with. That's not the case here or in Zion. One of the really nice things about Google Maps is that you can go back and forth between terrain and satellite. You don't have those options with Google Earth. I like Google Earth also, but this is a really nice feature with Google Maps, and you can see the color difference where these canyons are, how it's changed. There's a little bit of red, a lot of the shale showing through. Up here in Kolob, Zion, by the way, Kolob seems to mean Venus, probably a coincidence, but you have these straight canyons in the red color and these angles going off, similar to what we saw recently in Snow Canyon, just the last image. And you come down here and you have Zion. If you zoom out, you'll see that this discoloration continues over towards the east. This is the grand staircase of the Escalante, a very famous geologic formation. It has all the layers of the sediments, but it seems as if something came from the south. It did not make the straight lines like you have in Zion, but it kind of followed what was possibly fluvial to start with and enhanced them and ran up them and electrified them. And it goes over and it continues all along this level. Up here you have Bryce Canyon with all of the incredible erosion. I believe this erosion in Bryce is electrical. It's all around the edge of this. It was removed. It's even over here in the Cedar Breaks next to Cedar City. This area seems to have been removed electrically. Something coming up this canyon, and then it ran into this and just started to remove it. This is a very popular area. This is Sedona. Flagstaff is up to the north. Mogollon Rim is to the southeast. You can see that these formations here are similar to Zion. There's the straight line, that signature of electrical excavation. It goes up Oak Creek Canyon. You can tell by the coloration change that this seems to have been excavated electrically. And if we zoom out, we'll go down and find the Mogollon Rim again, where we started this. And this is the fluvial area where we saw all the dendritic ridges. This area, the rim itself, seems to have been excavated, something coming from the south towards the north, hitting an obstruction and removing a portion of it, making it so that vegetation doesn't grow. It turns it into something close to ceramic as opposed to dirt. That's the reason we saw these discoloration areas. They don't help vegetation when it turns to rock instead of dirt. So it's kind of easy to see these effects once you have an idea of what to look for. And it's incredibly counterintuitive. I thank you again for your attention.